consideration and do pass. Tonight, there will be a 30-minute courtesy hearing on Council Bill 536, submitting to a vote of the registered electors of the City and County of Denver a proposed amendment to the Charter of the City and County of Denver to give City Council the authority to consent to certain mayoral appointments. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter? I think we already have people signed up. Can we forego a recess, or do we need to take another recess now?
That's actually your decision. We don't close the sign up until after recess.
Got it. So anyone need a recess, or can we go since the hour is late? I'm seeing lots of nods saying keep going. All right. So we will skip recess. And now we have one 30-minute courtesy public hearing this evening. Speakers should begin their remarks by telling the council their names and cities of residence, and if they feel comfortable doing so, their home addresses. If you are here to answer questions only when your name is called, please come to the podium, state your name, and note that you are available for questions of council. Speakers will have 3 minutes. There is no yielding of time, and on the presentation monitor on the wall, you'll see your time counting down. Speakers must stay on the topic of this hearing and must direct their comments to the council members. Please refrain from profane or obscene speech. Direct your comments to council as a whole, and refrain from individual or personal attacks. Council Member Kinich, will you please put Council Bill 536 on the floor?
Yes, Mr. President, I put Council Bill 536 on the,
On the floor?
Be ordered published. It's not on the floor. To be ordered published.
It has been moved and seconded. The courtesy public hearing for Council Bill 536 is now open. Are we getting a staff report from a council member or from CPD? What are we doing on council members? Staff report, or are we going straight into hearing?
We can go straight into hearing unless everyone is dying to hear a staff report yet again.
Yet again.
I think we could probably just go straight into hearing.
Are we good going
I'm
into
happy to do just a quick overview of it for everyone here.
Okay, while you do that, a quick overview sounds good?
Absolutely. Okay, so this would be a proposal that would be referred to the voters in November 2020. It covers 14 mayoral appointments, the 11 positions that are the mayoral cabinet, which are specified in the city charter of Denver. Those positions are sort of like what I would call the quote-unquote major cabinet positions of the city of Denver. So that's the heads of things like the airport, parks and rec, finance, general services, human services, Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, Department of Community Planning and Development, things like that, the quote-unquote big ones. And then it also includes the 3 heads of safety. So that's fire, sheriff, and chief of police. The reason that it includes the 3 heads of safety is because Councilwoman Baca had originally, back in October, proposed that the city and county of Denver have an elected sheriff. While the proposal had a lot of support from the community, it did not have as much support from the administration. And so that is yep, you're not shocked to hear that. This is a compromise that straddles it bridges the gap between the two. So having the 3 heads of safety also be included under this proposal is a way to bridge that gap where it allows city council the ability to approve those 14 positions. So it gives you, the people, a voice through your elected city council representatives. This is a best practice across the most of the strong mayor systems across the United States of America. Denver is the only strong mayor system in the state of Colorado that does not do this. So it's, there's lots of discussion that we've had about it. I urge you to go back and look if you look online at our committee presentation, Councilwoman Baca and I did 2 Tuesdays ago at our Finance and Governance Committee.
Yeah.
Yep, it's worth watching to just sort of fill yourself in on a lot of the different ins and outs of it. But the proposal would allow us as a city council, majority 7 members, to approve these 14 positions. If the appointment is not approved, then that's it. Then they're not approved. Then the mayor would have to either find someone else to approve the position and appoint, or they would have to, whoever the mayor is, would have to come back to us and have discussions about why it is that we, as this council, did not support at 7 members, and then, if it was an issue of questions that couldn't be answered or something like that, then maybe it would move forward after discussion, or maybe not. But it would require a 7-member approval of council in order for those appointments to move forward. Councilwoman Sitabaca, do you have anything else you want to fill in?
Just 2 quick things. There are 2 ways that something gets on the ballot that you vote on. And one is through a citizen-led ballot initiative where citizens have to collect 9,000 signatures, valid signatures, to get it on the ballot, or by getting 7 of us to vote on something to refer it to the ballot. This is the one way that we can help you to govern. This is an important change because there are no salary caps on appointments. There are no job descriptions. There are no ways for us to fire any of them should we find them in trouble for something. This doesn't give us the power to fire them, but at least gives us the power to say yes or no if we know that somebody being appointed is a Klan member or something. It gives us one mechanism that's important for us to be able to have some kind of balance. And this is one of many charter changes that we're hoping to put in front of you. And so this will be the first one tonight that you guys get to weigh in on.
Yep, I think that's great. And I think, if there's anything that we've heard tonight, it is that the community is crying out for transparency and accountability from your government. And thank you. This is not a perfect solution, but it is one solution that is a best practice across communities across the United States of America. It is a way that is rooted in research. It's a way that is rooted in best practice. It is something that is done already. It is something that makes sense for our community. It is a way to create partnership and to create buy-in, right? So this is a way for city council members and the community through your city council members to create collaboration and a sense of collaborativeness that, in case you had not noticed, does not really exist in our community, in our government right now in a lot of ways. And so what this can do is change that narrative in a more positive way, in a more collaborative way, and I think that that's really important to keep your eye on and to remember. So that's the goal here. That's what we're doing here. And we look forward to your comments. Councilwoman Sitabaca, do you have anything else to add?
Let's hear the public
All
comment.
right, yes, please.
Thank you. Tonight, council has... Oh, sorry, anything else?
We're done.
Sorry. Okay. Tonight, council has received 31 written comments by people who are not here but submitted them as one of our options during COVID. So 31 written comments on Council Bill 536. There were 30 submitted comments in favor of the bill and 1 submitted comment in opposition of the bill. All members of council that are present have certified that they've read each of the submitted comments. So do any members need more time in order to read the written testimony? Because if so, then we need to go to recess so everybody can read. Please mark in if you do. Looks like everybody's good. Okay. Seeing none, Council Secretary, let the record reflect that all written testimony, both in favor and in opposition of Council Bill 536, has been read by each member of council, and all written testimony will be submitted to the official record of the hearing. We have 11 people signed up to speak on this item. So first up is Dennis Brackfeld. Dennis Brackfeld. All right, Katie Leonard. Katie Leonard. Is this Jamie Titus? James Titus?
Hi. So my name is James. I filled out in favor of this bill. I think the strong mayor system, the amount of power that Mayor Hancock currently has in this system and in the city is abhorrent, especially when it comes to those 3 safety branches. It seems pretty self-evident that the the way things are currently laid out, that the city council is fairly weak. I believe this is a time in which I can ask questions regarding this, or I can only say for and
It's still just public comment, your feelings about this bill.
Okay.
I mean, you could propose a question that someone might try to answer later,
Okay.
but
Well,
it's not a Q&A.
If you would like to answer my question, I would ask you, which is there anything in this that affects people being grandfathered in? If there is somebody who is currently ahead of a department, do they have to go through a new approval process in order to be appointed?
And sorry, people won't answer right now. You'll throw it out there, and people can answer once we get to comments. So you can just keep going.
Well, contingent upon that question, I would say that is something that needs to be added as another charter, or should be adjusted. And I would also request commitments from all of you who want to get reelected, to not approve the reappointment of the sheriff of this city who has instituted domestic terrorism on our city. So I would really appreciate anybody who can commit to not approving an appointment. I would also be in favor of extending this power more, so that you can't just say no, because I'm also curious about what happens, who stays in that position, like who is a sheriff, who is the head of a department, if that appointment is turned down, if an appointment is repeatedly turned down over some course of time. I don't know how long that would take, but I would hate for some interim goon to stay in there for some long amount of time while things continue to go to shit. So again, I'm for this, but I think those are all important questions that people that need to be addressed, and I demand your commitments on that in relation to your reelection. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Kenny White.
Hello. Just wanted to speak to you guys about checks and balances tonight. If we're actually going to be a actual government that supposedly protects people, we should be able to not have our city become what is almost a dictatorship. Like, when there are no checks to power, when people can be put into places of power, they have no, job descriptions or anything like that. That's ridiculous. I can't become an educator in a university if I don't have a master's degree. It should be the same in our city. You should have actual experience with safety and health. You should be questioned. You should be I think it's so ridiculous that we don't have it. I know the history goes a long time back to Mayor Spear. That's the reason why we have such mayor power in this city. It goes back historically a long time. But we know that power, even back then, was used for corruption. So you, as the city council, we look to you guys, and that is why I'm in support of this, and I think all of you should be in support of this too. Another thing I wanted to speak on with this is I don't think this is enough, but it is a start, and we believe that all of you can help hold the mayor accountable. Like, the mayor has done many messed up things. Like, when you put the home in, the real estate owners and the gentrifiers in charge of the housing department, that's ridiculous. There are other things I could go on and on and on about with, but I don't have the time. But I just wanted to come in front of y'all and have it be said, many people, even your commenters, there's only one or two people. I assume that one was sent in by the mayor. I can neither confirm nor deny, but I think that is the case. But as we look to all of you to keep power in check on the mayor, we hope that you use this power wisely, and we hope that you can do what needs to be done. Like, if you see somebody unfit, please make sure that you stop these unfit people from taking positions of power. Shouldn't have a dictatorship in our city. It's unacceptable. God. Like, I want to do more. Like, I could go into each department, but y'all already know very well enough. Y'all have people in there. And I think the best example I could take from was what just happened earlier. If we're letting that type of incompetence
that's 3
go
minutes.
around, and that's the shit that they're giving you, I think the mayor needs some checks and balances.
Next up is Jason Ball. Jason Ball?
Hello, my name is Jason Ball. I live in District 3, and 2 times in a row I got to go after Kenny, so all right. So yes, of course I'm in favor of this bill. I believe that, I'm a history teacher in District 3, and I teach children about civics and the American government, and it kind of seems ridiculous that our own city doesn't really model these same values of so-called American democracy, of checks and balances, a legislative branch that can actually hold the executive accountable. And this is what our own federal government supposedly does, where it's like, okay, cool, you can make appointments as the executive, that's how it should work. If it's good enough for the federal government, it should be good enough for Denver. And as Kenny had mentioned in our history, the reason that we have such a strong mayor government is when the city and county was created in the early 1900s during the Spear administration. And yeah, while he did a lot of things to make the city pretty, he was, according to historians, notoriously corrupt and kind of did some shady things. And we have seen this continue in our current mayor administration, where you can kind of choose to pick the people that you want to go through with your agenda. And I'm sure as city council members, it must be frustrating, because I know a lot of people who come here, they'll move from different parts of the country and think you have more power than you do. And a lot of times people will say, you have this power, and you'll be like, well, unfortunately, we don't. So for me, this is kind of a no-brainer. Why would you not want to give yourselves more power to hold the mayor accountable, to kind of give the citizens of Denver an actual vote to decide for themselves? By voting yes on this, you're not committing to it, you're letting the people of Denver decide. So that should be a pretty big no-brainer for me. So vote yes on this, and I certainly support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Blair Stapp. Blair Stapp. All right. Next is Tessima. Tessima. All right. Christina Schulman.
Firstly, I'd like to thank Councilwomen Sawyer and Sedabaka for opening this to public opinion. My name is Christina Schulman, and I am a social worker in the Denver community and live in the university area. Transparency in government and stakeholder input is the foundation of this country. I hate to reference this colonialist period, but the American Revolution occurred in part because the people had no say and no look into what their monarchs were doing. And I hate to quote a white male colonialist, but it seems that some of you only respond to those types of people. He more famously proclaimed, "Give me liberty or give me death," but he also said this: "The liberties of the people never were nor ever will be secure when the transactions of their rulers may be concealed from them. While we are not under a monarchy today, we are under a strong mayor system. With transparency in governmental appointments is necessary for the people to feel seen, to feel heard, and to trust that their thoughts and values will be reflected in those in charge of calling the shots. If we allow the mayor's appointments to go unvetted by the council, we are opening the door for corruption and nepotism. Councilman Cashman is my specific district's councilman, and while I understand the question posed concerning the whispers surrounding the potential deterrence of applicants, that deterrence should be the big red flag in and of itself. It is a privilege, not a given right to hold office in this country, to hold the power to make decisions that could directly or indirectly affect the people they serve. And that includes you all. So if we're boring you or if you're tired, we're just getting started, so feel free to resign. We need leaders that are not only qualified for their positions, but are also willing to show up for their agencies in a way that represents and reflects the values of the public they serve. I ask the council to vote yes on Bill 200536 to show your constituents, the people that give you this privilege, my clients and your fellow Denverites, the people that you live next to, the people that you pass on the street, that you will give them merely the opportunity to ensure that you will take your responsibility to the public seriously, your privilege of having a seat in public office seriously, and the checks and balances of power in our government seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think that Chairman Sekou has stuck around. I don't see him. No. Rosie Dupree. Rosie Dupree. No? And I don't see Jesse Paris stuck around either. No, Jesse? I don't see him. Okay. That concludes our speakers on this item. Are there questions from members of council on item 536? Council Member Torres.
To the speaker's point, did we clarify whether or not retained appointees would need to be reconfirmed?
Yes, so the way, Kirsten, do you want to take this or do you want me to? You want me to take it? Okay. So yes, the wording is that if an appointee is going to be retained and maintain their position as an appointee for the same position under a new mayor, right? So a new mayor is elected, and there's an appointee who's a current appointee who's going to maintain that position moving forward, then they would need to be reappointed. If there is an appointee who is going to stay in their position just until a new appointee takes over that position, just to cover the time period, then they're no longer the appointee in that position. They've moved to an interim appointee. And this does not specifically cover interim appointees because that's a temporary position. So then they do not need to be reconfirmed. Do you need to clarify anything that I have said there, or was that good?
That was
Well,
Councilman-
I'm confused. I've never heard of an interim appointee being different from permanent appointee.
What about
I guess I'm looking to Kirsten.
Kirsten, legal?
Kirsten Crawford, Legislative Counsel. There are circumstances where we have interims fill a position if someone, for example, resigns. This bill is intended to apply to permanent appointments, and it's not uncommon drafting. We have looked to other jurisdictions. As far as when a new mayor comes in, the question is really whether the nomination and the bill moves forward in a reasonable and timely manner. So if someone's holding the position and the new mayor's intent is to have the person resign and fill it, the question is, what period of time is reasonable? The standard for reasonableness is what an objective person believes. So there's case law on that, and certainly there could be a situation where someone thinks it's unreasonable and they're just filling it with an interim to avoid the process, and we would have to deal with that when it comes. But we shouldn't draft for the unreasonableness, in my opinion.
Got it. Thank you.
Right, and actually there was a question from one of the speakers about whether there was, how that worked, and just so everyone knows, it is written into the charter amendment, so it would be written into the charter that a mayor is required to fill the positions in a timely, reasonable, and timely manner. So what that does is it's not, you can't put a time period on what a reasonable and timely manner is. You can't say 6 months is a reasonable and timely manner, but you can say, is the mayor doing some sort of action that shows that they are trying to fill the position versus are they not doing any action and just using this interim position as a hold position and not actually taking action to try and fill that position with a permanent person who would have to go through the appointee process, confirmation process. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm answered.
Great.
And Councilmember Sadowaka, did you also want to help answer that question? Is that what you were flagging me for?
Well, just to add on to the question from the audience about basically getting rid of the sheriff. So we don't currently have a sheriff, and that would actually be one of the very first appointees that we would be able to have this power over, because it's between now and November that this would happen, and it's unlikely for us to have a full-blown sheriff process before November, so this might be our first chance to have this power, and that would be the first one.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Torres, you all good?
Good.
Okay. Councilmember Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I want to thank Councilwoman Sawyer for clarifying one of the sections that was giving me some heartburn, which was when the 30-day shot clock starts.
You're welcome.
So I would like to make a record here, because there's been a lot of confusion about our contracts and approval process with the 30-day shot clock. When it was adopted in 1982 or 3 or so, it was always understood by the city attorney's office that the 30-day shot clock started when the bill or contract was filed Thursday noon for the Monday meeting. And when I came on council 5 years ago, I found that the city attorneys have interpreted that differently along the way, and they start the clock when they bring the bill to us and it goes through committee, which shortens our time. And so I want to make a record here that the way I am reading this, Councilwoman Sawyer and Councilwoman Sadowaka, the intent is that now that the wording says, it used to say that the shot clock started when the mayor made the recommendation to council, when he gave us a letter. I am appointing this person to that position. That started the clock. And the wording now is much more precise and much more acceptable, that it starts 30 days starts when the resolution is filed for action by the council. It is my interpretation of our rules that the resolution is not filed for action by the council when it comes to a committee. It's filed for action by the council on noon Thursday for Monday. So that will give us that extra time. And I just wanted to bring that out and ask the two sponsors, is that your interpretation of this? Or are you interpreting that the clock starts when it comes to committee?
Well, committees are not required, so I wouldn't interpret it that way, no.
You would?
No, I would not. Committee is a courtesy,
Right.
so I would not interpret it that way.
So the clock will start Thursday noon when it's filed for Monday action. Thank you. Councilwoman Sawyer?
That's correct, and it is written that way in the final draft specifically because of the conversation you and I had about that.
Right.
And to clarify it exactly in here so that it will live on in our charter, clarified exactly like that.
Okay. Could I ask our legislative counsel if the city attorney's office agrees with that?
Yeah, Kirsten Crawford, Legislative Counsel, and John worked on this, so I'm speaking for him.
Let me ask John then.
But John drafted it just the way we're representing here. So yes, when it gets filed the Thursday before.
Okay, so thank you. And then, Mr. President, my next proposal will be that we interpret contracts, that the clock starts when it's filed.
We will have to save that one for another day, Councilmember. All right, anything else on this bill? Councilmember Flynn? Are you good?
No, just a comment when we get to comments.
Okay. All right, seeing no other questions, the public hearing for Council Bill 536 is closed, and now we'll move into comments by members of council. Council members, Sawyer and Sadowaka, I'll let you two decide who'd like to go first or for comments, or do you want to defer?
Okay. Well, I have said most of what I already need to say. So I think,
that staff report?
as I will defer my time, and if I want to jump in at the end, I will. Thanks.
I've said my piece. If you care about defunding the police or any department in this city, it's coming under the leadership, their budgets come under the leadership of their appointees. And so if this is one place that we can at least try to get some different people making decisions about our budget, then let's do it. Let's try it.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Hines.
Thank you, Mr. President. Folks, this is what democracy looks like. And I want you to keep coming, by the way. This is your house, and so please keep coming, stay engaged. But speaking of democracy, I am also amazed at how well educated and informed our speakers have been tonight, specifically on city politics, which is an interesting beast. And my dog will be really unhappy because he hasn't peed in over 12 hours. But anyway, but speaking of democracy, there is a disconnect between perceived democracy in the city and actual democracy in the city. Just as people have said, we need 3 functioning branches of government here in the city. And the way we learned it from Schoolhouse Rock was that we would have 3 equal branches that would keep each other in check. It's not what we have in Denver. And you know it, which is amazing. It's amazing that you are that educated and that engaged. So this, I believe, helps. It doesn't make the 3 equal branches of government, but it helps modify some of that actual power towards some of the perceived power. And so I'm really excited about it. Councilmember Sedabaka talked about how the appointees have no salary caps. This is a subset of all the mayoral appointees. But if you look at all the mayoral appointees, which is approximately 60, it fluctuates a little bit. The budget for the entire legislative branch, from Mr. President to the receptionist to all of us electeds and our aides, is less than the budget for the mayoral appointees. So to the previous conversation about how we're very lean, that is, to Councilmember Sedabaka's point, there are no salary caps for the appointees, and this helps us balance that power to make sure that our perceived government is in line with our actual government. So I am excited to refer this to you to vote on in November. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Cashman.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. As Ms. Schulman mentioned during comments, when this was first brought up, I was considering the idea that good candidates might be concerned with subjecting themselves to that public process. But thinking about it further, I have a hunch that should this pass tonight and get to the voters, and should the voters adopt this, I have a hunch it may be the last time you even hear about this, because it doesn't entail a big process when the mayor makes an appointee. The appointees go on to our consent agenda, and if there's no problem, it just gets passed on with the rest of the bills. And I think it's really no loss of power for a good mayor who is really concerned with putting the best possible candidate for a position. But if we are presented with a mayor who's trying to do favors and put people in positions that they're not the best qualified for. You know, we talk a lot about the salaries of our cabinet people, and they're comparatively a drop in the bucket in our city budget. I often wish we could pay more, and when there's a position open, I want absolutely the best individual in the country to fill these positions. I mean, Denver's at a time where there's so much going on. We need real visionaries. But I think what's going to happen, should this pass, is a mayor is going to be forced to involve council early in the process. rather than, no executive wants to look bad and put someone up that's going to get voted down by council. So I think there'll be conversations about if there's anybody that's got stuff that might concern council. I think there'll be discussions ahead of time. So, it might be, maybe somewhere down the line, there'll be a brouhaha and the mayor will put someone up and there'll be a big discussion on council. But I think most of that'll get done during the nomination process. So I appreciate my colleagues bringing this forward, and I do look forward to supporting this.
Thank you, Councilmember Torres.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I want to thank Jason Ball. Thank you for being here, representing District 3. I appreciate your words and your activism, and we've had good conversation, and thank you for being an educator. This will be an easy vote for me. I thank Councilwoman Sawyer for shepherding it since last October. So remember, you voted in people last May and June who came here to change things, and they started doing that right away. I also want to make sure you know only 39% of Denver voted in the last election. So democracy is in November. That's where it actually hits the road. And whether or not you vote and others vote in this city for this and for everything else that's on the ballot. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Sandoval.
Thank you, Mr. President. So first, I'd like to just thank all of you for sitting here. I can't remember the last time we had a packed chambers. I think it was the pit bull ban. I think there were more people here talking about pit bulls than I have heard in a long time. So I asked you all to show up when things were happening, and I didn't expect it to look like this, but here you are. It's 10:15, and you are still here. So I'd like to thank all of you for your activism, and I too will be supporting this to push this to the ballot. And it's going to be, it's the ballot from what I understand, it's going to be 3 pages. So you all need to look at all of the state initiatives. You need to look at these initiatives. And when you're talking about defunding the police department, I need you guys to look at the Gallagher Amendment. I need you to understand what Gallagher Amendment and Tabor does to our coffers at the state and at the city level, because we don't have money like other states have. We have taxes like other states have, but we don't have money because the way that the Gallagher Amendment and the Tabor Amendment collide makes it super challenging for us to get money into our coffers and to pay for all of the things that you all are calling for, the reforms that you are calling for. You all need to get educated on what's on the ballot. So that's my little spiel for the Gallagher to de-Gallagherize, I think is the term of it. I'm not quite sure. They just passed it. It's on the state. But if you have more questions, feel free to give me a call. I have a cool PowerPoint presentation that I got at the Latino Leadership Institute last year when I graduated from DU, and they broke it down in 5 slides. I've been asking questions about Gallagher and Tabor my whole life, and they broke it down in 5 slides. So if you want that slide PowerPoint, contact my office, Council District 1. I will gladly share it with all of you. And as for this bill, as Councilwoman Torres said, thank you, Councilwoman Sawyer, for pushing this forward and bringing this type of dialogue to this council. I think it's needed right now more than ever. So I appreciate you for your effort and doing the hard work to do outreach. It's really hard to do things citywide. So thank you for your steadfast leadership.
Thank you, Councilmember Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do share some of the concerns about that were expressed by one of the speakers and several of the members about whether a process like this results in perhaps not the best candidates coming forward because of jeopardizing a position elsewhere or whatnot. And I want to recall that that the community was upset with the processes for finding a new DPS superintendent when they ended up with only 1 finalist, and also the president of University of Colorado system when they ended up again with just 1 finalist because other finalists withdrew because there would be a public process. The answer to that isn't that, well, somebody, if they can't get 7 votes, then we don't want them anyway. I don't want someone who can just get 7 votes. I want someone who can get a substantial number of votes up here. There's always pros and cons to every measure that we consider up here. On balance, I believe this is a good proposal, and I'm very happy that to have the shot clock issue clarified so that there won't be any dispute about when we start and when we have to act. And so with that, I'm satisfied, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Hines.
Thank you, Mr. President. Councilmember Torres, thank you for urging people to vote in November. If you haven't turned in your ballot, you can vote right now. So just wanted to add that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Said-Abaca.
Perfect segue. I was going to add that democracy happens in November, but if you live in Denver, it also happens in May and in June if there's a runoff. Our elections don't happen in November for our city council races, so keep your eyes open. It's very different. That's why we have low voter turnout. And our ballot will be long in November because these things that we refer will go on the November ballot, but follow us on any social media, Candy Said-Abaca. We will create ballot guides for all of you to be able to share and disseminate and explain things so that we break it down and it's not hard. Just check the boxes.
Thank you, Councilmember. All right, I will echo thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for sticking with us, and echo what many have said and vote right now. We have an election going on. All right, with that, Madam Secretary, roll call on 536.
Sawyer.
Aye.
Torres.
Aye.
Black.
Aye.
Said-Abaca.
Heck yes.
Flynn.
Aye.
Gilmore.
Aye.
Herndon.
Aye.
Hines.
Pass.
Cashman.
Aye.
Kinich.
Aye.
Hines.
Aye.
Council President.
Aye. Madam Secretary, please close the voting and announce the results.
12 ayes.
I believe. I just want to clarify the record. I believe that was 11 ayes and 1 heck yes, I believe is what I heard. Council Bill 536 has been ordered published.